So counterfeit mitigation are the steps that you take to ensure that you minimize or eliminate the risk of receiving counterfeit, or also known as fraudulent, components. It includes everything from vendor management to physical testing to electrical testing. These are all processes and steps in the broad world of counterfeit mitigation. Flip's role in our customers' counterfeit mitigation efforts is to ensure that we're providing them with material that is directly from the manufacturer and their authorized distribution lines. By doing that, we can assure our customers that the products they're getting are legitimate, that they're unused, and that they will perform exactly as designed. There's been a variety of estimations, but the most recent one I've seen is that it costs the electronics industry, according to the SIA, about $7.5 billion per year. That is a substantial amount of money. I'd say the most recent trend, and it's a very scary one, is the embedded Trojan software that's turning up inside of FPGAs and other memory devices. And essentially what it is it's a malicious piece of code, popularly sometimes referred to as viruses, that the buyer doesn't know is there. And it may have some nefarious purpose, such as reporting what data it's recording. Or in one instance that I learned about, where the Navy detected parts where they were designed to identify when the submarine surfaced and to report back the location the submarine had been in, which obviously to enemies of our country is very interesting information. These are things that we can't detect physically. The standard counterfeit verification test won't find that. That's something that is going to be embedded by actors of great sophistication that transcend the physical characteristics of the part, which is by and large all we look for in counterfeit mitigation. When it comes to counterfeiting, a couple of the red flags I'll start with would be, first, your vendor source. If the vendors you're dealing with are not of great repute, if they don't have a good marketplace reputation, or if you don't have comfort level with them, that should be a red flag right out of the gate. Another big flag is if they're claiming to have stock in a part that no other reputable supplier has. That should also be a warning sign. The next warning would be if they're trying to ship you parts from out of the country and they're asking you to do things like prepay for the parts or misrepresent the incoming paperwork. Those are big red flags in addition to being illegal. And then finally, I would say that parts that you can't find anywhere in open production, and they're claiming that they have recent date codes or they have quantities that just seem implausible, that should be a big warning. The best practices to avoiding counterfeit parts is, first, an adequate management of your vendor supply chain. You can do that through ensuring that your source of supply is from authorized distribution or the manufacturers themselves. The second is to ensure that if you are unable to source your parts through that authorized distribution channel, to ensure that you have a robust, well-trained, and highly knowledgeable quality control program that can look for and identify the red flags of parts that have been previously used, misrepresented, or relabeled. There's a whole series of opportunities that companies have to expand their knowledge of counterfeit activity and the detection of counterfeit parts as part of their counterfeit mitigation program. These include things like the ERAI offering their Intercept training program. There's also a wide variety of standards that have been produced over the last several years to help in that, including AS 6081 and AS 5553. And then finally, ensuring that you have the technical expertise in-house to understand what it is you're buying, how it's being used, and how it should appear as compared to the original manufacturer's data sheets. The first response needs to be to physically segregate the parts to prevent them from re-entering the supply chain. That includes doing things like not returning them to the initial supplier. Some companies aren't even aware that if you do transport counterfeit electronics, it's against the law and you can be prosecuted for that. The next thing would be to report that information, that supplier. The more that we get news out to the industry of the bad actors, the people who are providing these things, and the people who are producing them, the more we do to protect one another. Remember that it's not just about corporate competition. The part goes into an airplane that the families of hundreds of people are on. So we've got to protect one another just as people as a whole, but specifically and especially as an industry. Our reputation as professionals in the electronics industry are being damaged year after year and incident by incident by these bad actors who are supplying counterfeit electronics. There's a couple of different sources. The first that comes to mind is to the FBI. They actually are interested in that and will prosecute counterfeit activity. Within the industry, the ERAI maintains a very active database of counterfeit activity that includes photos, test reports, and whatnot, so that we can, as an industry, actually go there and learn more about reported counterfeits and see photos and use them for training methods for our own quality departments. Additionally, there's an organization called GIDEP. It stands for the Government Industry Data Exchange Program, and it's a collaboration between the U.S. government and people in our industry to share information regarding not just counterfeit issues, but also quality issues, and to get technical information that may not be readily available. Counterfeits are catastrophic to the supply chain. Arguably the most damaging thing is when a part is misrepresented in its activity or it's previously used and it's got an expected lifespan, and it's used in something as critical as a military application or on an aircraft or in a life-saving piece of equipment such as an EKG machine. When these counterfeit parts are in place, they may not immediately fail, and over time they degrade and then present even bigger problems. Additional to that, they deprive our industry of jobs. That $7.5 billion a year in counterfeit activity is depriving manufacturers of legitimate sales, their distribution networks of legitimate opportunities, and they create even greater costs for the OEMs who are buying them. If you look at the total number of parts on a circuit board, it can be anywhere from 10 to 1,000. It only takes one counterfeit on a circuit board to destroy the entire board. And now you're representing hundreds, if not thousands, of man-hours of design work, development work, and manufacturing that in a split second is destroyed because this counterfeit was on that board and catastrophically failed prematurely. Obviously, you start with the original component manufacturer. As far as sources go, it doesn't get more reputable than that. After that, you want to look at their authorized distribution network. Working with an authorized distributor, such as Flip, provides customers with not just security, knowing that the material they're getting is direct from the manufacturer, but also provides them with technical support. What's more, we're able to provide things like certificates of conformance and other documented traceability that's increasingly required by government requirements and industry requirements. And finally, working with an authorized distributor, the customer can rest assured that the parts are being handled according to the manufacturer's specification, whether it's with moisture control or electrostatic discharge control, or even just observing shelf life requirements. Authorized distributors have relationships with OCMs that provide them with technical information that independent distributors and brokers don't have access to. And that information can make the difference between whether the parts you get are going to function exactly as intended, or if you're going to find premature failures or even catastrophic failures in the field. And that's exactly why companies in the electronics industry should work with authorized distributors like Flip Electronics.